Alright, hi everybody, I'm Chris. Welcome to another video review on the green malt. And today I wanted to talk about a whiskey from Jura, both the island of Jura and the Jura distillery. Let's start about the island. The island is on the west coast of Scotland. It's just northeast of Islay, the best known, I imagine, of all the Scottish Isles. It's part of the Inner Hebrides, and it's quite large, but there's only 200 inhabitants or so. But despite all that, they still managed to have their own distillery. Fancy that. The distillery itself was founded, I think, back in 1810, went into a state of abandonment and disrepair for quite a period of time, and was only revived in, I want to say, 1969. So it's rather new as these things go in its current incarnation, but it's got a track record. And it's an interesting distillery to me because it tries to do a variety of different styles when it produces its scotch. They do a couple of non-age statement peated scotches, the Superstition, which is lightly peated, and the Prophecy, which is heavily. And then they have their standard age statement range of bottlings, the 10, the 12. This is the 16. And I've heard that there's an 18 and a 21 out there, but I've not seen them in Ontario, so I don't know if that's like a Glendronach 15-year-old temporary discontinuance kind of situation, or whether we just don't see them in Ontario. But in any event, even in that age range kind of variety of whiskeys that they release, the flavor profiles vary quite widely. The younger whiskeys tend to be a little bit lighter and more floral, both in terms of their palate and nose. And this being the 16-year-old is a little bit richer and heavier. In fact, on the box it describes it as being rich and full-bodied with hints of citrus, fruit, and toffee. So there you go. And I have a visitor. All right, let's get you down. Oh dear. What do you think? No? Okay, down you go. Yeah, she gets very excited when I talk about whiskey. Where was I? Yeah, the 16-year-old. So this is the Diurach's Own, and it's called Diurach's Own because Diurach is the Gaelic word for the inhabitants of the Isle of Jura. And this particular release is supposed to be the favorite whiskey of those inhabitants, all 200 of them, so makes sense, right? So as I said, the box says it describes itself as rich and full-bodied, hints of citrus, fruit, and toffee. Yeah, I mean, I could definitely see that. It's aged for 14 years in bourbon casks, American oak, and then it's finished for 2 years in Amoroso sherry casks. So I can definitely envision those 2 years imparting a richness and sweetness to it. And in fact, if you look at the color of the whiskey, it's a very dark orangey color, so I don't know if that's necessarily from caramel coloring or whether that's just from the influence from the sherry casks. I mean, that doesn't say anything on the box, and by default, when it says nothing, I tend to assume that it's either chill filtered or colored or both. But I do recall reading somewhere that Jura, the distillery, has said that they only color their 10-year-old, and the rest of the range is natural. Could be wrong about that, but that was my recollection anyway. If that is true, then it's a pretty impressive color, because like I said, it's a very dark orange, and you can see that very much in natural whiskeys. So it's bottled at 43%. Fair enough. But it's a very easy drinking 43%, I have to say. It's one of the reasons I want to talk about it, is because in my goal is to talk about these easy, approachable whiskeys, at least to start, and really build up a base of those before moving into something a little bit more complex. So, where are we at? I added a few drops of water to this before I started the camera, and it's been sitting in the glass now for about 5 or 10 minutes. So, yeah, let's see where we're at. It's a very sweet nose. A lot of honey, sweet fruits. Don't ask me to describe the fruit. Toffee for sure. It's a very subdued nose, and that's why I say don't ask me to describe it, because my best guess, maybe like a candied orange peel, like those man, the sort of candy candy orange slices. I don't know if anyone's ever had those. If you were to lick the sugar off of those and then just suck on that for a minute, that's kind of what this reminds me of. Now, aside from that, so not a lot going on with the nose, I have to say, but this is not a whiskey that I choose for complexity necessarily. It's one that I choose for just the ease of enjoyment more than anything else. Yeah, there it is again. Quite sweet, not cloyingly so, but very honeyed. Still, the toffee is right there. The chocolate notes are there. I don't get the same citrus on the palate that I do on the nose, which is a little bit surprising to me. On the palate, it's more like slightly tart berries, but with the sugar poured over it, in the same way that you might take red currants. And this is what my grandmother used to do. She'd make red currant pie, you'd sprinkle sugar on it, so you'd get the tartness but the sweet at the same time. And that's kind of what this, again, reminds me of. Maybe like a creme brulee style sweetness to it too. It's not sugar, and honey is close, but not quite what I'm thinking. Yeah, maybe. So not creme brulee in the vanilla sense of it, but more in like the crispy blowtorch sugar on top kind of thing. That's what this reminds me of. There's a little bit of a bite to it as well through the development. And it's not spice. I can't identify any spice at all in this. But think of like the oak influence, like the acidity from the wood. That's kind of what this is bringing to mind. Rightly or wrongly, anyway. I'm just trying to think of if I can come up with any better descriptor for the fruits of it. Because without question, there's the sweetness, a little bit of underlying chocolate, and that acidic bite a little bit. Not unpleasantly so, but it's just a little bit there. Yeah, I don't get the orange anymore. Maybe a little bit of tart lemon on the finish. A touch, but not much. Because red currant is not a very good description of it, but it's tough. It's not a distinct whiskey. I mean, I've talked about Glenfiddich 12 being muddled and indistinct, and it's not that either. I mean, it's more subtle than that, but it's not punch you in the face kind of distinctive flavor profiles either. Last one, I promise. And the finish, last one for the finish. The finish is it's not very long. That like a little acidic bite just kind of carries through with some of that sugary sweetness. The fruitiness kind of dies off very, very quickly, and you're just left with a little bit of honeyed sweetness and that little bit of bite on the end. So where does this leave this exactly? Well, I'd probably put it in the same kind of ballpark range as an Open 14 for me. It's one step up from your basic entry-level scotches as far as complexity goes. You know, so if I put it in that range, I have to rate it, I think, an 82 as well. I think that's a very comparable score. For comparisons, oh God, whew, whiskey's getting to me. For comparison's sake, the Jura 16 here in Ontario cost me about $95. The Oban 14, though it's 2 years younger, would run me, I think, somewhere in the neighborhood of 110 now. So there's a little bit of an age difference. The price difference actually swings to the younger whiskey, as far as being more expensive anyway. And as far as experiences go, the flavor profiles are not the same. Certainly not. I don't mean it to sound that way. But in terms of depth of experience, I find them fairly similar. The Oban 14 is a little bit lighter in body. It's got a different set of flavors and notes to it. It's got that sort of little bit of a distinct salty bite, some more heathery notes, a little bit more floral in that regard. This is much richer, heavier in body, Definitely sweeter. It does have a little bit of a lingering sea salt to it as well. I have to say, just not as pronounced as an open or Highland Park whiskey. Uh, but if you're looking for something that's easy sipping, for me, I best enjoy this after a meal. If I'm sitting down after dinner to watch a hockey or baseball game and I want something with a little bit of sweetness in it to follow up dinner, but I don't want that cloyingly sweet kind of dessert malt, this is great. This is exactly what I want. And it's got just enough going on for it as to not be boring for me. It makes me want to have another dram afterwards, but it's the kind of easy sipper that you can enjoy by yourself or with a group of friends, and that's exactly why I wanted to talk about it, because I feel like it's exactly the kind of dram that it's worth your time if you're getting into Scotch, especially early on. We're trying to introduce some friends to it. So there we are. Diurach's own. It's worth a try. I would recommend it at its age, price point, and enjoyability. Give it a go. I'll see you next time. Cheers.